जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरधरधारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरधरधारी यशोदानंदन ब्रज जनरंजन यशोदानंदन ब्रज जनरंजन यशोदानंदन ब्रज जनरंजन यशोदानंदन ब्रज जनरंजन यमुना तीर वनचारी यमुना तीर वनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Jaya Radha Madhav Radha Madhav Radhe Jaya Radha Giridhari Radha Giridhari Radhe Jaya Gauranitai 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 Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada राधा माधव की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय।
Hare Krishna everybody. So on behalf of Sri Sri Radha Giridhari Mandir, a warm welcome to all of you to this special and important event. It's obviously a topic of interest to all of us, being grihasthas, having kids. Parenting is an important topic and Mataji is an authority on this, having written a book and having experienced herself. So on behalf of Radha Giridhari Mandir, I would like to also welcome Her Grace Aruddha Mataji to Sri Sri Radha Giridhari Mandir. Hare Krishna Mataji. Can we have a loud Hare Krishna? Hare Krishna! So, for practicing devotees, she's an icon. She's a role model. We all know her, very popular. For those of you who don't know, I'll just give a little bit about her. So Mataji moved to the US after getting married and had her 2 children over there. After some challenges in the school, she started this homeschooling, which became a part of her life, and then it's her mission to spread this knowledge, this experience to other people. They also started a small program at their house initially, which has now blossomed into a very nice temple, Sri Sri Radha Bake Bihari in Boise, USA. So she homeschooled her 2 sons, Radhika Raman Prabhu and Gopal Hari Prabhu, by mainly using the Srimad Bhagavatam, translated by Srila Prabhupada. Both her sons completed their PhDs from Oxford University at the age of 21. This experience gave her the conviction that the Bhagavatam can give a child everything he or she needs to become a well-rounded devotee and a member of society. While her children graduated early, she explains that was not the goal. Rather, for her, it reinforced that through learning from Srimad Bhagavatam, children can develop a higher capacity to absorb complex subjects and principles which can be assimilated with ease. So she's also the author of the books in front of her, which is, one of them is Homeschooling Krishna's Children, which is a BBT publication. It provides a complete guide to Krishna Conscious parenting, and with the help of a team of parents from all over the world, she has been publishing Srimad Bhagavatam, a comprehensive guide for young readers, which I think is from Canto 1 to 7 currently. And her team creates engaging study content to guide children, parents and teachers to study Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavatam in a delightful way. And obviously, at this age, she's been traveling all over the world, spreading this message, and hopefully we can imbibe something from our experience and take home some tips that we can start using. So, thank you very much, Mataji, and over to you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much. I just want to say that I wasn't so fortunate as to have the Hare Krishna school. So my option was homeschooling, and I'm glad I did it. But, this is an amazing facility here. Just wanted to add that. So we don't have much time today, it's being a weekday, so I'll quickly get into the seminar. And this seminar is divided into 3 parts. And the first part is based on ISKCON motto, which is purity is the force, books are the basis, and preaching is the essence. So I've divided that into 3 parts, and after each part I'll open up for some questions and then move on to the next. Okay? So the purity is the force, as you can guess, is all about making the home very conducive to our children's spiritual upbringing. In other words, what can we do at home, to help our children become, take to Krishna consciousness. In other words, the parents also have a very big role in the children's upbringing. It's not just the responsibility of the school. In fact, it's more responsibility with the parents. That never goes away, even though you may have the best school. So we'll talk about the environment at home, what we can do. And it's all based on what Srila Prabhupada gave us, isn't it? The process. The power is in the process. So it's just like a review of that and emphasizing those basic principles that Srila Prabhupada emphasized so much, which holds true for adults, but also for our children. Sometimes we think children don't need that, but we can do it, So That's very much emphasized by Srila Prabhupada, as you can see, you will be able to see with many, many quotes that he has. And, but we'll talk about what we should not do and what we should do. So both are very important, right? So we'll begin with what we should avoid and what we should actually follow, right? And the second part would be the academic curriculum, which means mainly the teaching, the study of Srimad Bhagavatam to the children, which is a very important, I mean, it's really the foundation, the real essence of the whole seminar, because without the foundation being strong, the other parts don't survive. So the foundation is the Shastra. When we give that philosophy and that knowledge in a child-friendly way to our children, then they are able to survive difficult years that come up, during their growing up period. And we all are aware, I mean, you're really fortunate to actually have the school here, because I travel all over the world and I know the types of situations and problems the children are devotee children are going through, those who have to go to public schools because they haven't really found any other alternative method which works for them. Okay, so that's that, and how much they can benefit from that. And we had that experience for ourselves as well as many, many other devotee parents. And the third part is preaching is the essence, which means the extracurricular activities that we can give our children, which helps them solidify their identity as devotees, right? Especially in the years of growing up, they start losing it. I've talked to so many people, it's like they are all fired up devotees in their early years, but when they get into teenage years, they start having doubts, and instead of being really enthusiastic, you'll see them coming to the temple, but way at the back against the wall, like they are really not something that they want to do, but they're being forced to do. So like that, how can we build that faith so that they can be proud to be devotees? And that is through extracurricular activities, which means going and sharing Krishna with others. In other words, when they get the opportunity to actually tell about Krishna to others, and when people applaud them, it does something to them. It's really powerful, and how to engage them in that way so that they're not so isolated, They have a way. We don't want to isolate them, but we want to insulate them. So how do we help them to do that? Reach out, outreach programs which solidifies their faith, and they don't feel isolated, basically. And that's where they are able to identify, understand, and develop compassion for others. So in other words, all three gives a very wholesome child, and it doesn't matter what type of schooling it is, alternative schooling, whether you have a Hare Krishna school, or whether you're homeschooling, or whether you're sending your children to public school. Of course, everything has its pros and cons, You'll see more benefit in terms of school, devotee school, and homeschooling. But however, these principles apply to everyone, right? I have most of my audience is with devotees who have their children in public schools. So they also need to be, somehow or the other protected, right? So they also need help in that way. Okay, so we'll go ahead with that. This is a very nice quote, I thought I'll read it out. It's a very powerful quote by Srila Prabhupada. If we train children by developing and encouraging their propensity to love Krishna, then we shall be successful in educating them to the topmost standard. Then they shall happily agree to do whatever you ask them. So, Krishna Conscious education is the highest education. And it is the topmost education according to Srila Prabhupada. Why? Because Krishna is the source of all material and spiritual. So when we give them Krishna, then obviously material will follow. The Shastras say that all the demigod qualities, that the demigods have, stand waiting with folded hands at the door of the devotee, asking to be accepted by him. Right? So So now we'll talk about a little bit about this before we get into the first section. This is Srila Prabhupada's instructions on the philosophy of education. I want to read a very nice quote that I really like that Srila Prabhupada said. If we are able to make a whole generation of our children into fine Krishna conscious preachers, that will be the glory of our movement and the glory of your country as well. But if we neglect somehow or other, and if we lose even one Vaishnava, that is a very great loss. So in other words, Prabhupada, among the three things that Srila Prabhupada emphasized, we all know about book distribution, right, as being number one. Then deity worship, and the third was Gurukula. I mean, it was really top on his list. He was very much concerned about the future, the second generation coming up, because he knew that these children are going to be very special because they're getting Krishna consciousness from day one. We didn't have that good fortune, right? We came at a certain point, but these children are chanting the holy name of from day one. Right? So they're very, very, I mean, we make a few devotees. These children are so empowered, they can make hundreds of devotees, right? And Srila Prabhupada saw that. And so Gurukula was a very big priority for him. And especially why? Why was it like that? Is because the thing that he really wanted to emphasize was character education. That is so very important for Srila Prabhupada. Because, without character, one can have everything. Like we see, people can have a lot of money and they can go to have the best education, but that doesn't guarantee a person to be a gentleman, right? It doesn't guarantee that. In other words, money or good education, topmost education doesn't guarantee a person to have good character, right? So Srila Prabhupada emphasized, that's why he emphasized devotional service. Devotional service purifies the heart of everyone, and that gives good character. For example, our scriptures, especially the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is not just about moral stories, right? It's not about that. It goes deeper, and that's where real character is, right? Moral, you would say, it would be something like, should I lie or should I not lie? Should I get intoxicated or should I not get? It's very simple. You just need a little determination and some focus, and you can make it. You can make a good decision, right? So that's being moral, right? So it says that Ramayana is more concerned with these moral issues, right? Lie or not lie, be a good person, good brother, good husband, and all that. So it's easier to understand. Mahabharata is more difficult to understand because it talks about ethical issues according to dharmic principles. You see the Mahabharata, it's all about following your dharma. You see Gandhari following her Stri Dharma, and so many dharmas are there, right? But Srimad Bhagavatam goes beyond that. It talks about ethical issues which aims at love and service to Krishna. Okay, so ethical issues means that there could be two similar things, and both are right. So which way do you go? When one is faced with situations like that, right? I'll give you some examples, like Bali Maharaj, right? I mean, he had a situation where he had to disobey his own spiritual master in order to fulfill the three, demands by Vamandev, right? And it was a very tough decision, but he took the decision of pleasing Lord Vamandev, right? So it's more based on love and service to Krishna, right? So in this way, for example, Arjuna, he was faced with the problem of, should I follow my Kula Dharma, which means not disrespecting my superiors, protecting, why should, the question of should I kill my superiors? They are my teachers and all that. Or should I follow Sanatana Dharma? And what did he choose? Sanatana Dharma, right? So you can see how Bhagavatam, it rejects all sub-religious principles. And it takes to the very highest level. It takes a child, and this is what builds character. Okay, this is what builds character. That's why our Shastras is so powerful and so pure. And only by following these Shastras and reading these Shastras and following the process of devotional service, the practical devotional service. Bhakti yoga, right? No other yoga. No jnana, no karma, no bhakti yoga. Because that has the power to purify the hearts of our children, right? So that is why he is emphasized. That was his main goal of wanting a Gurukula, is to develop this character in our children. Very, very important. We see our devotee children are so special, right? They go to university, and people meet them. They think, oh, they're so different. They're so different. I mean, they're brilliant, but they are so kind. These qualities that you see, right, in them. You don't see that. Normally you won't see these qualities out there, right? And this is what the process is giving us. And that's why it's so, he wanted children to be given this knowledge. Given this knowledge from day one. And when the foundation is strong, especially in the early years, Gurukula traditionally used to be just for the first 10 years of a child's life, maybe till 10, 12. Because it was considered that root, that foundation during those years, if that foundation is very strong, if later on, if he gets distracted, he won't be lost. He'll come back to it. But if that foundation is weak, in other words, and that's why, to wait and take it easy early on is not such a good idea, because that's where really, it matters, really. Actually, in America, they didn't consider these early years much at all. Now they're realizing, they consider this the lost years, the years that they lost, because they thought these children, when they're so little, you can just put them in front of the TV, how does it matter? But basically, in the first 5 years, whatever you develop in the children, you can pretty much, guess what they're going to be like, later on. At least they have a good, strong foundation. So anyway, so this is why Srila Prabhupada stressed so much on this process of devotional service for our children, and also the study of Shastras for our children. So a little bit about our experience. We were in USA. We moved to Boise, Idaho. It's a very small capital of Idaho, but very small place. And there was no temple, no devotee association, nothing. So we had to do something. We needed association. So we had to create association. So we started a center, and we invited people once a week. And this is how the temple gradually grew. My children, they got association through the visitors and through trying to, give them Krishna consciousness. We all got some association. Anyway, so I decided to homeschool them because I was very disappointed with the school over there. In fact, I had them go to a private school because I thought it's going to be better and all that. But to our disappointment, it wasn't. And a lot of problems academically, it wasn't very challenging. As you know, the schools out there are made for the average kid, If you're above average, you're pretty much, you're frustrated, right? Because it's not challenging enough. And if you're below average, then you just feel left out, right? So this is what I noticed, because I was sitting sometimes in the classes. It was a small private school, so I would volunteer time and all that. And I noticed how, my older son would finish his work and he would be just twiddling his thumbs, not being challenged, for like 20 minutes or half the time during the class. And then, of course, there were value problems, moral issues that I noticed. They would come and tell me different things, that was happening over there. One time the teacher spelled God with a small g or something, So, because most, all the schools are secular institutions. God, you don't speak about God. And there really can be good values or good character without God, because He's the source of all. So, and especially what really dissatisfied me is when they came home, they were very tired. And the whole frame of mind was so materialist, towards materialism. It took me so long to get them into a devotional frame of mind. And that, so I could do nothing, practically hardly anything with them. I wanted to do different things, teach them mridanga or some musical instrument, read Krishna stories with them, but they were in no mental state to do it. And it was very challenging to bring them back. So that also disappointed me. Anyway, at that time, among devotees, there wasn't much homeschooling, but it was quite popular in America. So I, went out to find out and met some parents. And they were, actually homeschooling is very popular in America and they're mostly Christian families, well-to-do Christian families, mothers who can afford to stay at home. So, and they are mainly also concerned with teaching their children values, good values. So they're, nice families and all that. So I met them and got to started studying about them. And then in America, you can buy a curriculum for the whole year. And it's very easy. You can buy a curriculum and you can teach from that curriculum. You can even hire a teacher and send their work for checking, assignments. Everything can be given. So I just took a curriculum and I started teaching them. And I was really nervous, so I thought, okay, I'll try to do it during the summer, and if they do well, otherwise I'll put them back to school. I was quite nervous. And so, but to my surprise, in 3 months, they finished the entire 1-year curriculum. Of course, they were young, they were like 6 and 8 or something. And so in 3 months, and we were studying like 2 hours a day. It's because the quality time that you're spending, it's like the tutorial method, right? Which was really actually, even 50 years ago, in America, it was a tutorial system, just like you have in Cambridge and Oxford. Even today, you have the tutorial system. One teacher with a few students of different ages. That used to be the Vedic system. And it's really powerful because, because you have so much one-to-one and interaction with the teacher, and it's also, it's not monologue, there's communication. This system that we have in schools today has been introduced only 50 years ago. Only 50 years ago. It's quite a new system. It's not, traditionally, it was never done like this, you see. So anyway, so this is, and in India, 50 years ago, Srila Prabhupada says, people, influential and very wealthy people would send their children to Gurukula. And they had all the facilities at home. They could hire tutors, they could do anything. But they found it so important to send their children to Gurukula, only because they wanted them to inculcate these wonderful qualities that only a Vedic education can give, right? Self-control, mercy, compassion, and all these things. So, let's move on here. So let's get to our first section, which is preparing the home, avoiding screen time, and limiting internet. I'm sure all of you have, are facing some kind of situation with your children. It's so difficult, isn't it, to try to curb these things. And we all understand that it's not beneficial for them, right? And now as statistics are coming up, research is being done, more and more is being known about the detriment, the bad, negatives for the screen time. There's 2 basic problems, okay? One is the content, and everybody knows that, right? I mean, we follow 4 regulative principles, and it breaks all 4 of them. Even if there's good shows, like in America we have the Discovery show, right? It's considered to be educational and all that. But they're littered with commercials. And children are exposed to all kinds of compromising situations, So, and plus, it's not like, and they say, even though it may be good for you, basically, and teach you some things, some parents are very proud, they learned reading just through these shows, right? The problem is with the medium, because you never stop watching it. In other words, if you plan to watch only half hour, it ends up into an hour, hour and a half. Nobody can close it. It's very difficult. Why? Because the nature of this medium is very addictive. It's just like a drug addict. When you give them drugs, then he can't stop himself. He has to get more and more dopamine, no? More and more. Internet addiction is like that. Unfortunately, it's like that. The more you watch, the more you need it. The more you get addicted to it. I don't know if you've seen a little baby, if you hand, a small infant, if you give him the phone and he's watching something and you take it away, the scream that you hear is not even close to the scream that when he misses his mother or needs milk. It's just it's very unique. It's just this addiction that somebody you just can't give up. And they've done research that the worst result is when you give hand the child very early. The earlier you hand the child, the more damage it does. We can't live without it anymore, right? Even kids, they must have it, right? But the later you give, the better it is. Because they've done research that if a very young child gets it, it does a lot of damage to the brain. There's neurons in our brain, and when you get addicted to watching screen time, it moves the neurons only on one side. It permanently damages the brain. Permanent. It's not reversible. Just like in America, when smoking was a big thing, they did so much propaganda to get people to stop smoking because they realized, oh my God, they're going to get lung cancer and this cancer. And people actually they benefited from that. Now smoking is really down there, right? Because they understood, okay, this is really bad. Now there's experts who are predicting that 10 years from now, they're going to say the same thing about screen time. How much damage it does. And people are going to realize and really try to do something about it, right? But it's going to be too late for our kids, this generation. So in this way, there's many, many things, of course. So medium, the reason why it's bad is because it's a one-way download from the brain of the child, from the tube to the brain. They've done research that the brain activity is zero. There's no activity in the brain. In other words, there's no creativity. There's no activity, no creativity. So what happens is gradually a child loses the desire to think and to be creative. There used to be a time, there's something called white space, a time where you just, it was your own free time, where kids would come and complain that I'm bored, Mom, I'm bored. And actually it's a very good thing, because then you become creative, because you're bored. You think of things to do and to create and hobbies. Well, they've taken all that white space. What do children do when they have some free time? They just pick up the phones. So what are they going to be, No creativity, everything passive. So anyway, Mother Urmila wrote a very nice article many, many years ago about this one-eyed, she called it the one-eyed guru. The television, the one-eyed guru. You meet your guru once in a while, and then you sit and hear him. But this guru is always there, morning and evening. And it creeps, it actually affects us more because you can watch it at the weakest moments in your life, in your bedrooms, right? And so this is very damaging, in other words, right? So the medium is a big problem, right? And even though people say just, okay, a little bit, right? Just like they say wine is good for you, good for the heart, right? But who stops at one glass of wine? Who stops? You want one and then two. This is like how internet and television is. You don't stop. So both of these problems, content and medium, is a big, huge. Of course, I travel so much, and I hear all kinds of stories from devotee parents. It's because it's just something that's out there, and it's really hard to stop, right? But if parents are educated, then they can do something about it. There's a very famous person called Ted. and he does a show called TED Talk show. And he's done a lot of, he interviews young people to see how they're doing and what they feel about it. And actually young people who've been giving very early in their life, they're very, unhappy. They know it's doing something to them that they don't want to see. As you know, they've contemplated suicide, they've gone through depression. They say, they question why their parents gave them. They say, everything evil is at my door. I've contemplated everything. So, like there was one parent in India who came to me crying and said, my son is addicted to pornography and I don't know what happened, how it happened, and I don't know how to stop. There's another parent who came and said, he threatens me with suicide if I tell him to, stop or reduce or whatever. So many, and these are from devotional backgrounds, such nice parents, but somehow the atmosphere and environment out there is gone so degraded that, I was in New Jersey just recently, and I mean, this, in America, not everywhere is so bad, but New Jersey is one of those places I was there, and parents are, the children are going to school, and there's so much, drugs. Among devotee, kids also, they are also experimenting, and then very soon you don't know what to do. It's too late. It's just too late. So, so many things we can see. The owner of Apple, Steve Jobs, he died. He's dead now. But somebody interviewed him and said, "Oh, your kids must be having the latest iPhones and things like that." And what did he say? It's very famous, this quote. He said, they don't even have it. I don't even give them. He's the maker, he knows how bad they are. He won't let his kids have them. But he's making a fool out of us, right? There's a school in Silicon Valley where 75% of the kids who are children of these, people who work there in Silicon Valley, they don't have phones. The parents won't give them. So we have to think twice. I mean, just try to delay as long as you can, According to TED, you just say no. It's like giving a knife to the children. I mean, you just say no. But then, of course, they need, how long can you not give them, right? At a certain point, there's so much they do in schoolwork, right? Also, through the internet. You can't stop it. Except if you go to a devotee school. Things can be adjusted, right? I don't know. Questionable, huh? Yeah. It's just such a, it's very hard to, but it must be done. Because, people are looking for social, they think it's a way to be social, but it's actually the most unsocial thing, right? Why? Because it's not about relationships. It's a fake world out there. It's fake. It's not real community. You see somebody really enjoying themselves on social media, and that's fake. Are they really enjoying themselves? Of course not. But the child is thinking, because we have to see from the child's perspective, oh, she's so happy, but look at me, I'm so unhappy. Right? So that is why they won't see it the way we see it. They see it in a different way as a child. So what do we do? The solution, because it's a fact of life. First of all, we also have to give a very good example. Not being always on our phone, keeping our phones in the drawer when our children come home, spending time with them, finding substitutes. The time that they spend on the screen, we can use that to do things with them, creative things with them. There used to be a time when the family would get together and they would play the violin or do something wonderful like that. All that is gone. Now they sit together and watch on TV. So we need to be creative, we need to spend time with them. And the best time that we can spend, the best facility you can have is a temple, where one can participate in so many programs, which is so healthy, dramas, plays, festivals, the young kids volunteering their time, doing volunteer work. So many things one can get engaged in, right? So many things are going on. I mean, the way Prabhupada set this up, I mean, every day can be a festival and fun for children. So we try to give them this higher taste. And when we give them the higher taste, the lesser taste will naturally go away. Right? Gradually, it will go away. Okay, so all the different things that we should do. And the first one is the morning program. Very, very important. And why? Because it purifies the heart. It brings us closer to Krishna, it purifies our heart. And it becomes a habit. Children who get up in the morning and do their morning program, they say that if you do something for 66 days, it becomes a habit. So if children do it every day, it will become a discipline, a habit. And then later on, wherever they go, they will want to continue with that. It doesn't matter, even if they're in college. It just becomes a part of your life. And it could be, it could be like, may not be that long. It could be something very quick, maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes, but it will become a habit. And if one starts the day with chanting and hearing the Lord's holy name, obviously one can face the world much better. It's like a shield. You do your morning program and you go to work. Even for adults, when they do the morning program and go to work, they actually protect it. It's like a shield. It protects you from the world out there. It gives you the inner strength. And the same thing it does with the children. They become peaceful, and a lot of problems with discipline, half of them go away. It's so powerful. Actually, in one of the writings, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said that actually during their boyhood and girlhood, young people are naturally attracted to bad association. It's just natural because they're trying to make sense. There's hormones are changing and so many things are happening in the body that they don't themselves understand what's going on. And so it just is, they're drawn towards things that are not good for them, right? And the only way, and it's so powerful, that attraction to bad association or attraction to the wrong things is so powerful that actually nobody can stop it. It's very difficult. So some things help, like a committed relationship with the parents. A close relationship with the parents does help, because the child will think, oh, am I going to disappoint my mother or father if I do this? There's some, consciousness, some guilt that comes. I can't do that. What will my parents? They've worked so hard for me, right? So again, a good family life, committed family, committed relationship with the children really does help, right? But sometimes even that fails. Actually, even that doesn't help sometimes, because the power of this attraction and the tendency to go, for sensual activity at that age is so powerful. And then, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati says the only thing that helps is Krishna consciousness, is service to Krishna. That's the only thing that can protect any child from going the wrong way. So it's very, very important to, and then he gave the example of the cowherd boys, how they took shelter of Krishna. So childhood is a time of happiness and play and all that, but not without the shelter of Krishna. So we have to understand that we can, ultimately, the only thing that can protect our children is giving them a strong foundation of Krishna consciousness, but something that's pleasurable, happy, something that we don't force it down their throat. It doesn't work. Don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. The formula doesn't work. It's very powerful. The urge is very powerful. And children they're helpless. Actually, they're helpless. They don't understand it themselves. And when others don't understand it, they get really, they become frustrated. And then communication stops between the parents and children. Then the generation gap, we call it, right? It becomes bigger, till you actually lose them. It's not even a gap anymore, it's like a valley. So that's why what Prabhupada gave us is a formula for our children, just like the adults do. Prabhupada said that, just like the elders do, the children do. Among all the things Prabhupada, he said children can play, they can run around, they can eat as many times as they want to. The only thing he stressed was morning program. In Gurukulas, Prabhupada always, the children would get up in the morning, because he knew how powerful it was, this process of purifying the heart through remembrance, chanting and hearing of the holy names. Eating prasadam, of course, as much as we can. I know nowadays it's not very difficult to completely do that. But Prabhupada said, if you just followed this one thing of eating only prasadam, you'd go back to Godhead. Just one thing, he said. If you just ate prasadam only. That's how powerful Prabhupada considered this, Why? Because food affects our consciousness. It hits the soul directly. You put it in the mouth and it hits the soul. Right? Why? Because we take the consciousness of the person who's prepared the food. We take it. For example, somebody, we go and eat outside something or something, whatever. I mean, just even store-bought bread, We have to think, okay, this guy who was making the bread, what was his consciousness like? Was he smoking a cigarette? Or what was he, how was he thinking? Obviously we cannot expect wonderful things, So that we take within us. That's why Lord Chaitanya, his process was chanting the holy name and eating prasadam. This is how he melted cold hearts. Krishna came to kill demons, but he did it through prasadam and chanting, because it's a very powerful process. And especially for children, for whom eating is a very big activity, especially small children, And it's tough for parents, if mothers are cooking 75% of the time, cooking, cleaning, so many things, right? So it's not easy to keep that. It's much easier just to buy something and give it to them, right? But through that austerity, we are actually, making these children, we're giving them, we're helping them to advance, to become purified, and we're giving them habits that they're going to keep lifelong. There's one child, I was in Riga, and there was this one mother who was saying that how a child just left one day. And what brought him back was his mother's cooking, prasad. He just couldn't handle it, He had to come back. So it's a very powerful thing, and of course you have this wonderful school, so you have nice prasad at the school. So it's a lot easier than for parents who are sending their kids to school. Then they have to really struggle with what to do, And then you have to give them things that other kids don't laugh at it, Like you have to give them pasta or something. You can't give them chapatis or vegetables, There's a lot of teasing going on, a lot of bullying going on, So many struggles they're facing, right? But that's something, their choice, right? They did that, so. Good association, very important. If it's good for us, it's good for our children. It's very important for our children to have good association. So what, of course here you have a school, so you don't have, the children have association with other devotees. So, things are not, you won't have the same problems that other children have. But just a little bit, just a little information on that. It's very important that, children do go to school. There are children out there who go to school, right? So they have to mix with other children, right? It's not like they can be aloof from all that. No, it's okay if they have to associate with other children. However, one has to be very careful how much association one gets, and that is one has to avoid intimate association with non-devotee children. Intimate means sharing food. That's one way of intimacy, and sleepovers. So those two things, if they avoid, then at least in school, you and everybody is around, like things are still, you can have casual friendships with them. But then your best friends should be devotee friends. And they should have such good devotee friends that they always feel like, these friends are here, but my best pal is this devotee friend. They should always feel like they are their best friends. And that means working towards a community where we can have, good friends, and working as a community to avoid many things, if you work together as a community for things like screen time and all, I'm sure there will be some better results, right? As a community, we can become very strong. Versus if you try to do it alone, that is so much harder, right? So we also should give our children adult association because they learn from adults, from elders, from senior devotees, from a lot of good things. Nowadays, you see that there's so much generation gap. Why? Because the children don't spend too much time with adults. Maybe a couple minutes every day of quality time in this fast-paced life. That's all. And so they're mostly with their children of their own age. And so they don't learn responsibility. When you stay with that, you also stay around with adults, then you learn responsibility, right? Now what's happening is, they're just like a separate species. They have their own music, they have their own dress, they have their own language. It's like a whole different world, right? So much of, so much of generation gap is there because these children don't spend enough time with the adults. But in the Vedic culture, they spend so much time. And the Vedic concept for this small schoolroom with one teacher and a few students, which are all different age groups. So they got a chance to hear from older kids, younger kids, like that. So it was more healthy, like that. Prabhupada said, if you all put them all only together and that's all they do, it's like fools learning from fools. That's why he gave a very big emphasis on children having adult association. My husband would give the example of Indira Gandhi. She was not even high school passed. She became such a big Prime Minister of India. How? She didn't even have a full education. She would hang behind the chair of her father, Jawaharlal Nehru, who was the Prime Minister. And she would hear all these things going on, all the politics, the diplomacy, all the different people would come. And this is how she became such a big statesman. You see? So examples are much better than precept, They're much stronger. Just like Prabhupada would give the example of Tarzan, he grew up with monkeys, so he had all the habits of monkeys. So it's who we associate with, right? You see the story of Dhruva Maharaj, his mother was excellent. She set his life, the direction of his life, by giving such amazing advice. We all know that, right? But what really matured him in devotional service was Narad Muni. If he didn't get the association of Narad Muni, he would not be who he was. So it's so important to give our children good association of pure, saintly, advanced personalities, because obviously their character will rub on them. and of course from Shastra. We'll hear about that very soon. Deity worship is very important because by deity worship, one can have a personal relationship with the Lord. I want to read this very amazing quote by Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his book called Jaiva Dharma. Religions that have no provision for deity worship face the danger that those children born into the religion and those just beginning spiritual life, both of whom may have little or no understanding or deep faith in Godhead, may become overly materialistic and even develop aversion towards the Supreme Lord as a result of the absence of a deity form on which to fix their minds. Therefore, deity worship is the foundation of religion for general humanity. Because this experience that if somebody has been introduced to deities later on in their life, they have such a hard time, right? To see the Lord as a person, very difficult. When you preach to outsiders and you bring them to the temple, they have the hardest problem is when you put them in front of the altar, because they haven't grown up seeing God as a person. It's very difficult for them. But imagine these children who grew up worshipping the Lord. Just like they see doll, they don't see a doll as a doll like we would. How do they see the doll? As a person. The doll is hungry, feed the doll, dress the doll. So they see Krishna like that. He's actually a person. We won't see it like that. But kids will, if they're given. And Prabhupada writes about his experience, how when he was a child, his father gave him Radha Krishna to worship. All the great acharyas, they grew up with Krishna dolls, Krishna deities. And they were so immersed in playing. It's very powerful. And they will see Krishna always as a person. And that will also become the foundation of good Vaishnava relationships. Because everything will become very personal for them. So that's why it's very important that they should have some kind of... Now, deity worship, of course, they have to be supervised. Right? My children had Gaur Nitai, 4-inch Gaur Nitais as their own deities. And they would bathe them, dress them. And of course, I was there, and they tested my patience also, a lot. Anyway, I gave them very early in their lives. So they would be very immersed and absorbed in doing that. And sometimes and you know how children like to just play. It was a way for them to play, but with boundaries, some boundaries, right? It's a great way to see. It's like you're teaching them both. You're teaching them Krishna as a person, but you're also setting some boundaries. So they see the difference. That I can be like the cowherd boys, put food in the mouth of Krishna, But yet, but Krishna is my friend, like that. They will relate very personally with them. And they would be immersed in doing that for like 2 hours or something. Doing the whole thing, dressing, and then we do artik and all that. Of course, as they get older, there's less time for elaborate time like this. So things change and you have to be flexible like that. But you already have sowed the seed, And because children love to play. So this is a very nice for them. It's a nice way to let them play. Right? And that's how Prabhupada talked about himself when he had deities. So it's very nice. Okay, so we'll stop here for the first section. I don't know if there's enough time for questions. Sorry. Yeah, there is some time. Yeah, let's if anybody has any questions on this section of the seminar, which we talked about purity is a force.
I wasn't fully catching your distinction about the ethical from the Ramayana, Bhagavatam, and the Mahabharata. Was it the Ramayana's ethics to do with family relationships?
Well, it's more focused on those issues, what is right, what is right and what is wrong type thing, because it emphasizes more on, basic things. Like, being a good father, being a good husband, being a good, brother, like that. So it's more, it's not questioning so much in terms of, ethical principles. That Bhagavatam is much more difficult to understand versus Ramayana. If you read the Ramayana, it's much easier to understand than Bhagavatam. Because Bhagavatam is so deep. And the more you read it, it goes deeper and deeper and deeper. You study the Bhagavatam a little bit? Yeah. So when you study it, you'll see it's very, very analytical. It's very, very deep. And you really have to use your, your sharp, like your good reasoning skills and your critical thinking skills, much more than Ramayana and even Mahabharata. Mahabharata is way difficult than Ramayana. So many dharmas and so many dharmic principles. Right? We see how, Draupadi was such a great devotee of the Lord, right? She had such a close relationship with Krishna. Right? Krishna incarnated as a sari to help her, to protect her, right? So you see that, and then we see somebody like Gandhari, right? She was more in following the religious dharma, the dharmic principles. She was a very chaste wife, right? Very, very chaste wife. But then her devotion to Krishna was more based on mundane religiosity. That I need to do this, it's my duty. So her relationship with Krishna was not deep at all. Because it was based more on dharma, doing her three dharma, not really on the basis of service and love to Krishna. But even though Prabhupada, he glorifies her, he compares her to Bhishma there because of her vow and all that, right? You see how, somebody whose focus is on pleasing and service to Krishna is way more advanced. It's so much, and that's what Bhagavatam talks about, versus mundane dharma, which is good, except it's not good on, it's not about the soul and the soul's journey to Krishna. If we want the soul's journey to Krishna, then we have to read Bhagavatam, because it really goes to the main thing, that how we are spirit souls and we are part and parcel of Krishna. Not that you shouldn't read Ramayana. Children love Ramayana. It's very nice for them. I'm just saying why Prabhupada emphasized so much Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. Why it does what we are, the ultimate. Why it rejects everything else. Is that okay? Hare Krishna.
I'm just wondering if you can comment on Hare Krishna schools opening up their students enrolling that are not devotee children, because our school has a large number of children now that aren't devotee children, and just looking at the good association slide, it's actually very difficult to achieve that now. Like my daughter said to me the other day that only 3 girls in her class come to the temple, and she just commented to me. And in terms of the food and the things that they're bringing from outside, it's actually quite difficult to achieve that.
Well, I'm definitely not an authority in that because, I'm more familiar with home education, from schooling, and because I really, I just won't know so much to be able to comment over here. But definitely you can talk to other people and see what is better and what is okay. Yes.
Hare Krishna. So far we've been talking about parenting when the child is out and we can touch, we can interact with them. But what about before that point? So during pregnancy and before that, how would you recommend that we best prepare for Krishna consciousness to start even earlier?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the consciousness of the parents really assists in having a child that's more evolved. That's why the Garbhodhan Sanskar was something that Srila Prabhupada suggested, right? Because, the children who are coming from parents, devotee parents, whose consciousness is more geared to Krishna, more focused on Krishna, naturally the child that they have will be more spiritually already evolved. So you won't have to go through so many issues with them that naturally they bring up if they're coming from past karma, that are questionable, karma. So that's why it was considered, Krishna consciousness begins even earlier. That's why. How Prahlad heard Narad Muni within the womb. Right? Just through the process of hearing, he became a pure devotee, So it starts earlier. Yeah, Krishna consciousness starts right from the beginning. So the more you can, if you can, so it's very good to actually follow that process that Prabhupada suggested. It's not a guarantee, though, because what's more important is the training that you give afterwards. That's very important. Birth is good, it helps. But more important than birth is training. How we train our children. Our own example and the example of other devotees. Mm-hmm. Yes,
Mataji, we know we teach the children about the stories about Aruddha Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, and giving them the association, training them as well. But still, we find that in the teenage years, the children they leave the movement, and somehow they don't have the taste, and they lack the taste. And teenage years are very challenging years. They leave the movement, and many devotees it has happened that the parents are very strong in Krishna consciousness, but the children are nowhere, and it is very scary. So what happens at that time, and what do we do as parents? Even we think that, was it the thing how we have brought them, is it correct? Or did we lack anything? Or is it their karma? So is it that their karma is playing?
Yeah. Well, they have many authorities now, especially if they're going to outside schools. It's not just, that's why as parents it's becoming less and less effective. Because there's so much out there, so many different authorities to grapple with, right? So it's not something defective that you're doing. It's more what they're exposed to.
The influence of the peers.
Yeah, and it's very difficult to fight that, So that's why one needs very, that's why Shastra. That's the thing I was going to get into. Children do need to study Shastra. It's just presented in a different way, in a way that they can grasp. But by giving them the philosophy, and by, and that too from such a powerful book, like Srimad Bhagavatam, it does something to them. And they actually then they see the world, they're not so quick to adopt those values. They see things with a critical eye. Because the whole Bhagavatam study is a training to see things critically. Every story is a critical analysis. It's not a straightforward story. None of the stories in Bhagavatam is a straightforward story. There's so many nuances that are happening, right? So they're trained to think like that. They're trained to question. They're trained to inquire.
We are most scared when, after leaving Hare Krishna school, when they'll go to the university and they'll be having a very strange world for them, facing that. And it will be very alien for them. Sometimes the kids say that, we are the only people, odd men out. It's like one among hundreds. Hundreds are doing one thing, and I'm the only person who is not doing anything. So at that time they doubt their Krishna consciousness, and they think that, am I the sane person or am I insane over here?
Okay, that's a very good point. So what you do is, what I did was that wherever you send them to college, make sure they have association. That's so very important. Every child, no matter how good you raised him as a devotee, they all need protection. Maya is very, very strong. And within that association, there's protection, right? I send my kids to Oxford, you know? And good schools were right here in America, but I prefer to send them out there. Why? Because they had a nice devotee association. All the devotees lived in an apartment together. They cooked. They took turns cooking. They had a morning program. And these were kids from Japan, everywhere, you know? So they had association. It's always like a constant reminder. We should never think, I've done what I have done whatever, now it's okay. No, we always have to give them that protection, that regulated enjoyment. Enjoyment they need. They have to have parties and fun. Then we have to find a temple, you know. So the Bhaktivedanta manor is right there. My son said that if there wasn't Bhaktivedanta manor and his parties out there, I don't think he would have survived. The whole Oxford University is considered a party institution, a drinking institution. You know that? The first day they had the orientation day, when all the new students are oriented, you know, the provost was there, everything. And they had, you had to go for that. And then of course they had dinner and my son ordered a salad or something. Nobody said anything, but when it came to passing the drinks, the wine around, everybody had to drink. Because they take pride in the fact that this is a drinking institution. They said, drinking is part of, that's what he stood up and said, drinking is part of my culture, is part of my, what did he use? Is part of my culture, is going to be part of your culture now. And they passed this really expensive wine. And everybody, my son was like, whoa, And then, of course, he didn't drink. And then everybody saw him, that he wasn't drinking, because there weren't that many kids out there. They have different colleges, so he was in the Queen's College, so only the kids in the Queen's College were there. And everybody got in his case. Come on, take a sip. It's not going to kill you. Come on, Gopal, take a sip. There was so much pressure. So much pressure, you won't believe it. And he thought, what should I do? Maybe I should take a sip or something, And then he remembered his spiritual master. He didn't think of me. What is my mother going to say? He thought about his spiritual master. You can see the power of pure association. He was already initiated. That's another thing. Before they get to college, if you can, get them initiated. And it just so happened, it was so, they were. And he immediately started, what would my spiritual master think if I do this? And right at that time, one of the students, who was half drunk by then, said, just leave him alone, man. Just leave him alone. And the whole pressure died down. So children go through a lot, even devotee children. And that's why they need protection. They need things that can help them. Association is so powerful. I know parents, they have opportunities to places where there's association, they will reject that and send them to this amazing Ivy League college with no association. What to do? He has to progress. And that too at the undergrad level, where it doesn't matter which college you go to, really. It's the master's level that matters, really. And I knew that, and that's why in the beginning I just sent them to this local university. And when they did well in that, then they could go to Oxford. But we spend so much money just to give them an Ivy League undergrad with no association. Even though you've put them in the best devotee school or given them everything, but Maya is so strong. And then they also need their fun, they also need their party, they also need to experience, all those things that others are experiencing, but this is in a devotee, style, right? Protection. So that's one thing, you can think about doing. Always, when you have to send them to college, send them to a place where there's protection, regulated enjoyment. And then, of course, yeah, yes, Harish.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you for the insights. Just for a question, you mentioned that when you were teaching your kids, you're doing 2 hours a day and you finished the whole year's course.
They were very young. They were like really 5 and 7. So the syllabus curriculum is very not a big yeah.
Well, I guess my question around that was that you've got these amazing Bhagavatam books that you've written for kids. So how were you balancing the moral or the ethical education through Bhagavatam along with the material education around maths and science and all that? Like within those 2 hours a day kind of thing, were you segmenting some time for both, or was it like a week of this and a week of that? Like how were you kind of managing the two aspects of Bhagavatam education along with material?
Well, this is called the 5 R's. The 5 R's, letter R, which is reading, writing, arithmetic, rote and raga. So these 5 things, rote means memorization, raga is music. So if you focus on these 5 things, then, the math takes care of all the sciences, if you make them strong in math, then if they want to go for the sciences, and then the language takes care of all the humanities. And then you have, you have to have something like music, because the mind needs to get that other side, not just the academics. So rote and memorization is very good for the brain, Memorization is really good at that age. They can really memorize things that it's much harder later on, like shlokas and things like that. So so that's what I did, but. Like again, I was homeschooling, it was a different style of education. I made it very flexible. We had too much service, running that center, so I just kind of made it very flexible. I didn't have anything structured, But you can make it structured. Everybody has to follow their nature, The same doesn't work for everybody,
Do you do anything differently if you were doing home education now?
I don't know. I'd still, teach them from Srila Prabhupada's books. I still do that. Yeah, definitely. Because see, in America, they don't have strict requirements for homeschoolers. That's why it was so easy in that way. I didn't have to do their curriculum if I didn't want to. But they had yearly exams for homeschoolers. And they were able to get tested and see, and I could see where they were at. Like I had a rough idea that, okay, and that was only just for English and math, But it's true that if they have strong math, they can do the sciences. The reason why I got so much faith in the Bhagavatam, just reading that, when they went to college, they were able to do any subject. Because Prabhupada says, that's what I was going to read to you, that Bhagavatam actually has every subject, covers every subject matter in the world. Right? So even if children are going to school, that most parents are sending their children to school. I tell them, study Bhagavatam, if you can, study Bhagavatam with them. In Vrindavan Gurukul, they're studying these books. They finish all 6 cantos by the time the child gets into high school. At the Gurukula. They study Bhagavatam every day now. And they're noticing a lot of difference among the children. And even Mayapur International School is using them. Okay, yes.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna School is also ordering some sets of books.
Oh, thank you.
And His Holiness Sri Swami Maharaj commented after Mataji had given some seminars through the Hungarian Yatra, that Mataji is doing the work of 10 sannyasis by herself. So hearing this nectar stream of encouraging Krishna Conscious education Katara has reminded me of that quote. So thank you so much for your wonderful presentation. I did have a question, Mataji. Sometimes devotee parents, they have a concern that the children will be too insulated and they need to go out to get experience so that they're able to deal with the world. And if they stay in a Krishna Conscious education environment too long, they may not be ready for the world that's waiting for them. So I was very interested to hear what your opinion on that type of question might be.
Well, it depends on what kind of education it is, you know, you give them. But if there's, I think what I feel, you know, and that's one of the main criticisms, you know, people have, right, of schools that are devotee schools and all that. But really, the study of Shastra, Bhagavatam, and our lifestyle really does prepare them for the world outside. Because when you study Bhagavatam, it's so much about the nature of this material world. And one doesn't have to experience it in order to, you know, to understand that it is what it is out there. One just needs simply to hear, right? Prahlad just was hearing it, and he could preach to his father so vehemently, right? So in other words, it's not true. I mean, these books and this whole process does prepare a person to the outside world. Okay, so it doesn't isolate them, really. Of course, that's what, but I do emphasize, you know, some exposure for them, right? And that comes in my third part of, you know, like just about every day after the morning program and after the Bhagavatam, which we did as the first thing, we would go out and do things out there. You know, several times a week we would go out and do preaching programs. You know, I would look at the city calendar, see what's going on there, book tables, you know, book tables ahead, you know, prasadam table or book table or something or the other. So I took them outside a lot, but in a protected way. The context was Krishna consciousness. So this way they get to see the world, but then they see it from the perspective of being a devotee. Right? They're not completely isolated. We even went to the point of doing prison programs. Once a month we were going to prison and doing prison programs. You can imagine what effect it has on a child, right? So in other words, exposure was there, but it doesn't have to be leaving them out there to experience it. That is not recommended at all. Because just by being in the material world, just by being part of this world, you experience immaterial life. It's not possible to be totally sheltered, right? So, you know, so exposure is, you know, is okay, is good, but it has to be done in a protected way. And a school is there for that protection, right? And, you know, if they go on Harinam or do things like that, or book distribution, or, you know, and of course, reading, you know, Shastra with them, you know, like there has to be, and also, you know, there's always some association with the outside world, right? Through their parents. It's a day school, right? It's not a boarding school, what you have here. So in the day school, you do have exposure when you live with your parents, right? They're going to different places, they're going to different friends and families. There's exposure there, right? In a boarding school, when it's a boarding, there's less exposure, then you have to worry a little bit more, right? Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for the inspiration.
Thank you.
I like all the points that you're raising. And it's just very good to remind us of what are the essentials. So thank you very much. My question is, especially your sons have become like professors, PhD and everything at a young age. And yet Prabhupada was saying that in our Gurukul we don't want to make PhDs, we don't want the children to go to university. We want to do the Varnashram college and we want to, you know, live an alternative life. So could you comment on this and how to apply it?
I thought that's not true because he encouraged Aruddha Mataji, right? to go and...
No, I'm talking about the children that are growing up in the Gurukul. Prabhupada said we're not interested in making them PhDs.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he's what I think was more in context of just studying for the sake of studying, like doing PhD because it wasn't so much for using that PhD in service to Krishna. He wasn't really against that, where he wanted the children, if they did do PhD, they could use it for preaching purposes. And that's what my sons are doing. By using that title, they are able to preach to the outside world, So it really, Prabhupada was not against that, from what I understand.
Yeah, I think another point I wanted to point out is your sons are exceptional and they're very, Brahmanically inclined. But nowadays it seems like it's assumed that every kid will go to university. But
No.
Is it meant that every kid should go to university?
No, not at all. That's where the Varnashram comes in. We have to understand the nature of that child. It's very, very important. But the foundation is strong Krishna consciousness. And then whatever Varna they want, and ashram they have, they can follow that. Whatever nature they have, that must be, taken into account. And the teacher's role in school used to be that. Their expertise used to be that to find out the nature of the child and to encourage and give the resources according to the nature that would suit the nature of the child. So not everybody is going to be inclined towards scholarship, study and all that. No, it's different natures. And to provide that, some children are naturally more inclined to devotional service, some children are less, right? They're more, inclined to, more, mundane things, right? So the teacher has to see that nature of that child and accordingly, provide the resources. But what is the foundation is Krishna consciousness. No matter what the child's nature is, unless there is a strong foundation of good Krishna consciousness, it won't work. It will just topple. Everything will topple. So the child who's inclined, may or may not follow because of weak foundation, and the child who's less inclined towards spiritual will fall away, right?
Is that the change in education that you mentioned 50 years ago? Or is it something else?
The change? Yeah. I mean, that's what I heard, that, it never used to be like that. One classroom with 40 kids or 30 kids. Never was like that. It was smaller. So the children grew up more wholesome. Right now, it's just, children are not motivated. So by giving that strong Krishna conscious foundation, what's unique about our children, they're always motivated. Even when they do mundane things. When my kids went to college, they were motivated to do well, to study these mundane subjects. It's not like, okay, this is all nonsense, this is all useless, No, I mean, they wanted to do well. They wanted to excel because they knew they were going to, I'm assuming they knew that they were going to use it for Krishna, So it doesn't always it's not supposed to work like that. That after they're trained in Hare Krishna school, that they'll lose all their motivation for everything else in life. And they won't fit in there. As long as there's a strong spiritual foundation, that's very important. Whether it's a school, whether it's homeschooling. And that's where, things are difficult, because then there are some sections of people who say no more of this, no more of, this should be more, this, like things like that. But according to Srila Prabhupada's vision, that has to be strong. The spiritual foundation has to be strong. And that will help him when he goes outside, goes into the world. And of course we have to give them the academics, the school curriculum and all that. We have to equip them to be very responsible adults, as grahasthas, be able to earn money, provide for the family. So all that also comes into that. Yeah. So I think we should go on. There's not much time. Yeah, there's a little bit of time. So here's a very nice, some very wonderful quotes by Srila Prabhupada that I'm going to read for you. Our students specifically, they should take care of reading Srimad Bhagavatam. We have therefore prescribed in our school Dallas. And from the very beginning, if they begin education with Bhagavad Gita and then come to Srimad Bhagavatam and read the whole literature, then they will be more than MA, PhD. Even astronomy, astrology, politics, sociology, atomic theory, everything is there. Therefore, if you study Srimad Bhagavatam very carefully, then you get all knowledge completely. Throughout the whole world, whatever knowledge is there is in the Srimad Bhagavatam. If one simply reads this Srimad Bhagavatam, his education is the topmost. If one studies Srimad Bhagavatam, he was well versed in every subject matter. And these are just a few of the many, many quotes Srila Prabhupada spoke about Bhagavatam being able to equip any child with everything. And actually, just it so happened I experienced that. You know, there was no plan for me to send them early to school, college. It just so happened we were running a restaurant, Govinda's, and some gentleman used to come frequently to eat. He was head of the English department in our local university. And he would notice these kids, you know, and he noticed how well they spoke and they had good vocabulary. And he just suggested, you know, give them one class at the university. And I was like, wow, you know, like I was so shocked. And I said, how can that be? And he said, no, he kept encouraging me. He said, no, I mean, he's the head of the English department. So, you know, you have to believe him, right? So anyway, this is how the journey started. And in college, and I said, okay, it's okay, because I felt like it's not a bad idea, really, because I had done what I had to do with them. And so, they went to college, we talked to the dean, and they had some placement English exams, and they scored high, because again, Prabhupada says, I mean, he'll train you for master's and PhD, Bhagavatam study, right? And I saw it happen, you know, they scored high in their placement exam, and the dean said, okay, maybe one class. And all the classes were full. We did this very late in the semester. Everything was full. 101 was full, 102 was full. He said, no, you try for the honors class. I said, honors class? And then we went for the honors class, and that was full too. And then the second year honors class, they had some seats left. And he just signed up. I mean, he kept pushing us, and we kept doing it, you know. And then he went, and the syllabus was Shakespeare, all the Homer's Odyssey, and all these classical writers that he had never studied before, ever. His whole schooling was based on Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita. And he walks into this class and doesn't know what to think of it. And gradually he started reading it, and he got the syllabus and the reading list. He realized that actually it wasn't very difficult to understand Shakespeare. Because so many things were similar. He had ideas on reincarnation and things like that, right? And, especially if you've done, stories of, of demigods and things like that, he was able to, in other words, he was able to do that very easily. And the teacher came and told me that while the other kids were grappling with the storyline and the plot line, this kid was digging in deep. What was Shakespeare thinking about this? What are his views about this? And she gave him a straight A. That's what I'm saying. I mean, that's what Srila Prabhupada is saying. It trains you to think deeply about something, thoughtful. I mean, the child is still very innocent, he's still a child. But it's the soul, right? I mean, this philosophy, this Bhagavatam is speaking to the soul. And that's why we have characters like Dhruva and Prahlad who are just children. So that's, and I saw that firsthand, what Bhagavatam did. And this was all accidental. All accidental. Why would I think of them starting college so early? And then they did that, he did so well, and okay, just take another class then. And then it went on and on. And then in summer, you're allowed to take as many credits as you want. They took like 12, all the stuff, the core subjects, psychology, this, that, anthropology. Because the idea was that to finish it up, and summer sessions are very short. They're like 5 weeks versus 4 months in a regular session. So they quickly did away with a lot of subjects like that, core subjects, and during the semester they took much less, so they had time to do things and chant their rounds and things like that. So in other words, so many things we teach them in school, and we are required to, there's nothing you can do about it, but it's useless giving them so early in their life, because they have to study it again, and they have to study it again. But you have to follow the system. I mean, all the subjects that they do early on, I mean, right now in schools, they teach you everything. There's like 10 subjects, even in elementary school. I don't know how many subjects. And then you do everything, you spend your time working on these social studies, this and that, and you forget everything, and then you have to do it again later on. So Prabhupada said, why not use that time? And that's what children in the Gurukula used to do, right? They would immerse themselves in Shastra, study from their gurus, you know. And the school concept, Hare Krishna school, is so nice. Even Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati talks about that because parents have such a attachment, bodily attachment to their children, they were always sent to a teacher, the Gurukul teacher, because he was more, you know, advanced and detached and all that. So he was sent, the idea was to send it to a place where there's higher understanding. Because parents, after all, you know, we have weaknesses, right? But Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he did not send his son to Gurukula. He taught him himself at home. He followed the contemporary model more. But what did he do? He made sure that his son went and took shelter from Gaur Vishuddhas Babaji. Okay. So in other words, Gurukula, the whole, is a very nice opportunity to be able to send a child to that kind of environment where he's getting the association of other children who are also inclined towards that, and the teachers and everything. Because it's very difficult now in contemporary times for most people to do homeschooling. It's a lot of responsibilities and a lot of sacrifice, you know. Anyway, so this is what it is here. The spiritual benefits, I've already talked quite a bit. The character part, you know, how important it is. You know, I was thinking about, you know, we have a new president in our country, Trump, right? Everybody's heard of him. Trump. Anyway, this whole immigration thing going on, where he's pulling out these immigrants, you know, and sending them back. You know, he hired a military aircraft, and he put all these people from Colombia and sent them back, you know, and they were handcuffed like criminals. And that really affected people over there, wherever it was, you know. I don't want to get into the politics part of it, but just in terms of Bhagavatam and the character. You see in the Bhagavatam, even when the king defeated another country, how they treated that king. They would make the son of that king the king, of the defeated king the king. They would respect. I mean, you know, we don't have, you know, we have to learn how to respect, irrespective of who they are, right? I mean, Krishna, when he dealt with Kaliya, he didn't just smash him and say, "You rascal," and you believe. Yeah, he was upset, but he made him king of all the snakes. Sent him with so much grace, right? So this is what we learn from the Bhagavatam. So that's why Prabhupada said, such children can become leaders of the country. He wanted that. And that, the Shastra, the Bhagavatam gives that training. When you read stories after stories of all these great kings and how they deal with. I mean, how Parikshit dealt with Kali also, right? You cannot get that. No moral science class can teach you that. It's not deep enough. It cannot give you real character. Parikshit Maharaj's humility, I mean, very amazing. Academic benefits, critical thinking, yeah. So this is, nowadays what employers are looking for when your children get older, they're not looking for just the merit, how well you've done in your school. They put forward problems to you, and it's how you answer them. How you can, they test your creativity of dealing with problems and finding solutions to it. These are the kind of skills they're looking for now. They're not just looking for good marks that we can get in school. They're looking for these kind of skills now, everywhere you go. In America, if you want to become a lawyer, what they encourage you to, they like it when you have a background of philosophy, to become a lawyer. Not because of the content, but because of the skills that's needed to find, to give philosophical solutions to problems. So the Bhagavatam training can give a child anything they want to do in any facet of life. It's just so amazing. Right? What to speak of, but that's really not the aim of reading Bhagavatam. It's more, we want to go back to Godhead. But to say that even in non-devotional areas, it will make a difference. Huge difference. So that's because it develops these skills, these communication, vocabulary skills and all that. Methodology for teaching, again, people can develop their own way of teaching, but something that I followed was taking turns reading, because this way you can trap the mind of the child. They start getting restless, but if their turn for reading is coming, and only translations, the parents read purports ahead of time, teachers or parents, so that you can give the essence of the purpose to them during discussion, because children don't have the capacity to go through purports. So not every purport that you bring out the points, just, whatever. I mean, Bhagavatam is taught in layers. You cannot give everything all at once, right? And it's also taught by contrast. I mean, when it says things that are bad, it feels like always demonizing something or something. But it doesn't, because the study is taught by contrast. If it gives the qualities of Hiranyakashipu, it's also giving the wonderful qualities of Prahlad and how he lived, even faced in that situation, right? So you have both. Death is described as being, especially somebody who's sinful is terrible, right? But then you see Dhruva Maharaj, how he went back to Godhead. So in other words, it gives both the pictures. So what it does to children, it gives them a lot of hope. They see the nature of material world out there being terrible. They can't figure out why it's like that, right? More children out there, they cannot figure out, and that's why they become frustrated in life. Because there's no answer for that, no solution, why the world is so crazy. And because they don't have a solution for it, they become frustrated. And they take to drugs and this and that. Right? But for a child who's raised as a devotee reading Shastra, he's going to see that, Because if the world is full of Hiranyakashipus, there's also Prahlad. And how he takes shelter. So they always have this, they know what the solution is. So that's why it never can do them harm, even when they read the sections that are really like horrific. It's so transcendental, this literature, that it will never provide any harm to any child. Because it always gives the contrast. Anything the child needs to learn about, the relationship between man and woman, is all in the Bhagavatam. best place to learn about that than trying to pick up from here and there. Every type of situation is given. You know, when it's done, you know, when sex is used for wrong purpose, for sense gratification, this is the result. When it's used for good purpose, this is the result. You get wonderful children who who you raise them as Krishna's devotees. It's very pleasing to Krishna. So every type of scenario is given. So a child knows, okay, happens when this is done, this happens when this happens. And if they don't pick it up from Bhagavatam, the different aspects, how material life, the nature of material life is attraction. But how to use that attraction in Krishna's service, that's the key. And if they don't pick it up from the Bhagavatam, they try to pick it up from everywhere else. And that becomes very harmful for them. So anyway, so we discuss it. So taking turns reading, and then we open it for discussion, and that's really a very wonderful part when we discuss. Because children need to express, and this really works good for communication. The openness, that's when children actually start revealing their hearts, you know. It's very hard for them to reveal their hearts if you were just to sit with them and say, tell me, you know, something, what's going on, and they close up, you know. But when you do the Bhagavatam with them together, and something about the nature of the Bhagavatam, you know, and Krishna, they start revealing their innermost feelings or, you know, and their opinion, their reflections are so powerful. Sometimes children's reflections are as good as the adults, even better. So discussion is very good. And again, discussion sharpens the intellect. It's a fact. Because this communication is not a one-way thing. Teacher is thinking, child is also giving their opinion, you know, reflection and summarization. There's many stories like that. You know, just the story of Jay and Vijay being cursed by the sages. Amazing story for discussion. Amazing story, Jay and Vijay, cursed by the sages. Who's right? Are the sages right? Is Jay and Vijay right? Giving all the arguments. And when the sages, you know, say, okay, sages said it's too much, too strong a curse for something very small, really. Right? They didn't really deserve that curse because then, you know, their misdemeanor was very small compared to the nature of the curse that they gave, right? But then how did they take the curse? So many things, right? So we went back and forth, and children love that. They actually children like a good fight. You know, you talk there. I remember teaching children, many online, I used to have like sometimes 100 kids, you know, not in one class, different groups of 10 or 12. And it was just so fascinating, the way they would get into it and discuss, and you know, and they could you could see, you know, how they're thinking, and some of them would say, oh, my brain is going to explode, you know, or something like that. Because there's so many layers, but they love it. They just absolutely love it. And they're learning so much. How a devotee should behave if a devotee gets angry with them, curses them. You see in the example of Jai Vijay, right? I mean, the sages felt really bad for doing what they did because they realized Krishna loves his devotees, you know. Anyway, and then Jai Vijay is thinking, oh, you know, I shouldn't have done what I did. Anyway, so this goes on and on. So amazing story after story where children use their muscle, you know, brain muscle, to think about things. And that's like a training for future when they're really faced with actual challenges in life, actual problems. You're training them for that. Equipping them, just like Suniti, she equipped her son. The Kshatriya spirit didn't come from him being a Kshatriya by birth, it came from his mother. So like that, we train them to what's coming, the challenges that are coming. Of course, these are some examples. from the study guide. So there's many things. And then I'll go to just a couple lines into different levels, different ways, but they're all pretty much, you know, you go from what to how and why. But even a 5-year-old is ready for a why and a how. It depends when you start teaching them Bhagavatam. The earlier you start, the deeper they have the capacity to go into. So that it depends, you know. So even a 5-year-old has, you know, is able to. There's one boy that I was teaching over Skype, and he was my grandson. I couldn't be with him, but I was teaching him over Skype. He was only like 4.5, like that, or 5 years old. And we were doing the Dhruva story. And you know, it's a fascinating story for children because it's a little boy, right? And there was this thing about, you know, when the airplane comes to take Dhruva back to Godhead. And it's a beautiful description of how the airplane looks. And he got a little fascinated with that. He said, Daddy, I want to go in that airplane. You know, he's just 5 years old. And I said, okay, you can go one day, if you know, you can go. And then he said, then we started reading again. And he said, no, Daddy, but I want to go right now on that plane. So I said, okay. And I started thinking what to tell him. And then I said, okay, you can go, but remember your parents cannot go right now. Is that okay? He started thinking, and he said, you know, I will wait, because I don't want to make the same mistake as the Jamal did. And that story I had read with him many months ago. And I'm telling you this experience I've had with many children of this age. Imagine he brought 2 stories together. Now if you have to teach a child gratefulness, you can't tell him, you know what, I've done so much for you, you need to be grateful to me. What is he going to do? Nothing, right? He's just going to lie. But you teach him gratefulness or response, you know, through this story, it goes really deep. That's why he remembered it, right? And this is called character formation. So what Bhagavatam can do, we cannot do, you know. We cannot preach to our children and say, you be like this. I remember we used to go to a Christian school, a convent, I mean, and they would have this moral science class as the first class, and you know, all the 10 commandments and all that, and we'd never care. It just went here and would go out. Because these are not value stories only. They have deep lessons, right? Anyway, so there's one more section. Preaching is the essence, yeah. So this is, I have already talked a little bit about this. This is where, you know, you can expose them, you know, with different things. It helps identity, sense of identity, confidence, devotional character. Public speaking, very good for children. Of course, they're little, then you have to speak, they listen, they observe, and as they get older, they get a chance to speak, you know. We should encourage them to take some roles like that, because all children like to be in the limelight, right? It's natural for them. And skills that we go to college to learn, all can be taught within Krishna consciousness. That's why Srila Prabhupada gave us everything. We don't have to be seeking outside. Everything is here. All these skills can be taught to a child. Because there's so many opportunities we can give them, right? For public speaking, for giving a class, if he's old enough, for debate. Everything. And preaching opportunities for children, our school and college programs. We focused a lot on school and college programs. When they were little, we did school programs. We contacted schools and asked them if they would like something to a class on a presentation on the Vedic culture of India, and you know, and they would agree. A lot of them, especially where we came from, they were quite starved of other, you know, religions and things like that, and they would invite us, and then we had an opportunity to, you know, to give a presentation, and it would be so wonderful because there would be so much questions on Krishna consciousness, and karma, reincarnation, and this and that, Sanatan Dharma, cow, why the cow is sacred, why we are vegetarians. And this way the children saw firsthand. Imagine a child going into an atmosphere, environment like that, and hearing, and that how we are presenting our philosophy so openly and so proudly and so confidently. It does something to them, right? And they also are small participants of that. When they're little, they can show their dress, they can show their tilak. So many things they can do. They can play chanting on the harmonium. So they're participating, right? So they're feeling a part, they're feeling proud that I'm a devotee. And as they get older, they make presentations because you already are training them. You're giving all the knowledge, the philosophy, the inner purity of sadhana. You're giving them all these things, right? So when the time comes, there will be a few struggles, a few nervousness and all that, but they are ready to make presentations. At least on the smaller level, elementary schools make their own presentations, or high schools. I remember the first time they went to a high school for their own presentation. Radhika Raman, he was like 12 or something, or 13, and he gave his first presentation, and his legs were shaking and his hands were shaking, like it was like a terrible situation. But he went past that. And the children, school children over there liked it so much, they would skip their classes to come and join us, hear them, because we would have chanting, kirtan, and all these things, prasadam. So they would be, so it's like, okay, well, people like that, and they would applaud. So what it does to a child is big. It really helps them in their, feeling confident about who they are. And of course, as they get older, they get more and more bolder, and they go to college, they can speak over there, and then you invite them for other things, So whatever is available in the city, one can grab that. It doesn't matter, Earth Day, this day, that day. There's always opportunity to present, to distribute books, talk to people, to make small talk also. It's very important, right? Because we have to present ourselves as being, normal, happy people. So then home programs, bhakti brikshas, great opportunity. We did a seminar in Chowpatty some years ago, and half of our audience was brahmacharis. And I was wondering why the brahmacharis are here. This is for grihasthas, right? And they said that it's because we preach to the grihasthas, they said. And they were really concerned about the kids. The parents are just amazing devotees. But the kids, like one of you was saying, right? They just disappeared. Not interested, busy with their phones. And these brahmacharis, they were really concerned. So these are our future people, Right? So they wanted to get tips. So they came to hear and something like there's so much Prabhupada talked. They also took away tips about japa, how to encourage new brahmacharis to chant japa. And Prabhupada spoke about that. How do you encourage a child to chant japa? Because japa should not be seen as a punishment. As soon as you say that if you're bad today, you have to chant, you did this, you chant 2 rounds now. So the connotation is that japa is really bad. It's negative, it's horrible. That child would never want to chant japa all his life, right? So these techniques have to be, you can't force the children to chant. It has to be encouraged. By chanting with them, by finding peers where you can chant together, by coming together on Kadishis and chanting together. Devising different ways where their peers can also come. We used to devise this japathon once a year, where on New Year's Eve, where everybody would get together and we'd chant one holy name for every citizen in the state. So everybody was all fired up. Kids were chanting like 40 rounds, I'm going to do 64 rounds, because they wanted to, you know, and the number of rounds they did was written on the charts, you know, we had a chart. So you have to think of ways how to make it a very positive experience. Everything for a child should be very positive. It should not be like a chore or something that they're just like waiting to get out and be done with, you know. And a lot of it can be done at home with parents, you know, how we, you know, behave with our children and how we encourage them. We can do a lot of work at home. The school does its own work, but the parents have their own work at home, you know, with the kids. That's important. Anyway, I think I'm past, yeah, I'm 3 minutes past the time. Unfortunately, there's no time for questions, but should we end here? It's getting late, right? Thank you very much, Hare Krishna, all of you. Thank you. I'm so happy to be in Auckland, you know. I love this place. I especially love the temple. It's so beautiful. It's like an oasis. I mean, it's like so beautiful. And everything with me. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, thank you. I just have a couple of announcements. Okay, before we all head off. Yeah, so just like a big Hare Krishna to Aruddha Mataji for coming all this way and yeah, sharing this great knowledge with us. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. And as you can see, she has these beautiful books that she's put a lot of time into. Time, love and devotion, and yeah, I've personally used them myself and have really benefited from them. They're very beautiful. So we have some sets over there on the table. You can come and have a look at those. We have limited amounts of them, so yeah, you can reserve them. Got one here. Okay.
The full set. The full set.
Okay. Yeah, so come and have a look over that. And Mataji's been very generous. She's not making any profit from this. She's just purely giving them on the printing and shipping costs. So also, if you would like to, you may give a donation towards Mataji for her contribution to her airfares coming over, or whatever you like. You can come and see me over there. And then also there'll be part 2 of the seminar tomorrow on parenting values through Krishna Consciousness. Yeah, if you'd like to RSVP for that, just so we know about Prashadam. Yeah, and finally, if you can just spare maybe 1 or 2 minutes just to help maybe fold a mat or put a bench back or something, because it's quite late in the evening, so yeah, if anyone can just chip in a little thing, that'd be very good. You have something to say?